Too often we have approached the question of miracles from a Western prejudice, so that sometimes even Bible scholars are embarrassed by reports of miracles and try to explain them away, or we allegorize them, we bring out their symbolic significance. Now I think they often do have a symbolic dimension too, pointing us to God's salvation, other dimensions of God's salvation as well. But I think they also point us to the fact that God cares about us as whole persons, including our bodies. Many other cultures, the Christians there, read it in very different ways than we in the West have often read it. And especially in recent centuries, we in the West have often read these narratives the way we do, in a very skeptical way, because of the influence of David Hume. Because miracles are a problem for us. But miracles aren't a problem for Christians in many other parts of the world. Rudolf Bultmann, a mid-20th century theologian, a New Testament scholar, said that nobody in the modern world believes in miracles. Well, as I pointed out during a seminar during my PhD work, by excluding from the modern world anyone who believes in miracles, he was excluding all Orthodox Jews, Christians, Muslims, traditional tribal religionists, 2/3 of the graduate students sitting around the table. He was excluding most of the world from his definition of modernity. Bultmann was living in a much smaller cultural bubble, in a sense. I don't think he recognized how diverse the world was, but his idea goes back to David Hume. David Hume said that only ignorant and barbarous peoples believe in miracles. Now, Hume meant that in a very ethnocentric sense, and all that, as bad as he sounds, we can tell that from his other writings. I mean, he was pro-slavery. He said certain other peoples were inferior to his own race, and so on. Today, we know that Hume was wrong, and today when we take into account reports from around the world, we just have massive numbers of reports from various cultures to whom miracles are not a problem, but an expectation of a living God who acts in history, who acts today. So that, for example, Justo Gonzalez says what Bultmann called impossible happens all the time in Latino churches. Or Hua Yung, the Methodist Bishop of Malaysia, says that Bultmann called this impossible. And that's his Western cultural prejudice. For us in Asia, it's not impossible. It's something expected. My wife, who's from Africa, and other African friends tell me, look, we in Africa, we need miracles. We have to depend on miracles. Life is a miracle in Africa. So hearing the voices of other cultures, I think, can help put our own prejudices in perspective and help us as we dialogue with one another. We all have insights to contribute, but as we dialogue with one another, I think we can come to a clearer understanding of what Scripture says. And I have a very strong suspicion that I think I can offer considerable evidence for, that some of these voices from the majority world are much closer to the way the writers of the Gospels and Acts would have expected people to hear them than our modern Western prejudice has been. When people went into temples of Asclepius, the Greek god Asclepius, and there were all these testimonies posted on the wall, the point of these testimonies was not for mere historical information, not meant to be allegorized. It was meant to encourage worshippers of Asclepius, yes, you can trust this deity to heal you. Well, we don't believe in Asclepius, but we believe in the true God, the maker of heaven and earth. And when we read these accounts of what God has done in the past, I think they're not there just to satisfy our curiosity about the past, but they're meant to invite us to faith and the living and real God is active in our lives today.